This week, we're headed to Oklahoma to chase down a prehistoric fish that resembles a shark, if it weren't for its massive nose which grants it its name. I'm joined on this fishing hunt by my wife Allison, as well as a few fishing friends, David and Samantha, as well as some helpers from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, as we make our way through the winding rivers of this rural part of the state, making casts towards and learning the history revolving a fish that doesn't buy lures or bait. I'm Bo Angles, and I've never been one to turn down an adventure, especially when it includes chasing a monster catch. Whether it's projects, food, hunts, or fishing, we've got something for everyone. We are modern day outdoorsmen. As I headed south from Wisconsin down towards Oklahoma, I took a pit stop for 3 days in my hometown of Salina, Kansas, spending time with family as well as chasing down a Rio Grande turkey during the Kansas spring turkey season. But that's a video for a later date. Spending my evening at an Airbnb on Grand Lake of the Cherokees, I shook off my fishing cobwebs, jigging for small crappie and bass as I prepared myself for a morning chasing after truly unique fish. Our guide this morning is Nels Rodefeld, joined by Amanda Thomas, who also works with the department. Make no mistake, this adventure was a unique opportunity, a trip offered by the department for a charity auction, of which I was eager to experience. Nels told me that the charity trips are a great way to show people the joy of chasing after these unique fish, of which Oklahoma has a stronger population than anywhere else in the U.S. As we rounded a bend in the river, Nels pulled us in along the bank, anchoring us on a submerged tree, where he showed us the way to target these filter-feeding fish.
So paddlefish, a prehistoric species, and they eat zooplankton that's what they eat. So you can't catch them with a lure. Instead, you have to try to snag them with this simple hook, weight below it. The key to paddlefish is the sweep. We're going to throw out, let the weight go to the bottom, and then we're going to pull the rod, reel up the slack, pull the rod, reel up the slack. And the secret is you don't have to jerk super hard, but you need a real long, smooth sweep. The longer and smoother, the better. All these fish will be mostly like going up and down the river, so we're going to try to be casting perpendicular because you have the biggest target area when you're sweeping back across their full length of their body. We let it sink. You can usually feel it hit the bottom, or just give it like 6 seconds or whatever. We're going to reel up the slack.
Prepped with my newfound knowledge, I prepared to make my first cast on the Verdigris River. And it didn't take too long before I struck something solid. The weight of this fish allowed it to put up a bit of a fight, but there was a problem. I had them just barely snagged on the side. One bad move could mean the difference between getting this fish aboard or possibly losing it.
He is only hooked,
Looks
so
like barely hooked on the side. You ready for him to take off? He's liable to run hard.
dang it.
As the fish came into reach, Nels reached out and grabbed the jaw before pulling them on board.
Let's go.
And you can see this. These are the called gill rakers. Like you can see these are the red gills down in there. That's where they exchange the oxygen. But these white things are gill rakers. That's where they strain the zooplankton. They actually have no bones. There's no bones in the paddlefish, it's all cartilage.
Sure.
This is the American paddlefish, otherwise known by some as a spoonbill. This unique fish is known to have 7 relative species. However, unfortunately, its only known living relative out of the 7, the Chinese paddlefish, was recently declared extinct in 2022, making the American paddlefish the last living paddlefish species in the world. As I took photos with my catch, I was faced with an interesting dilemma. Usually on my adventures, I love to watch my catches swim away, especially when it comes to big fish. However, in Oklahoma, due to the plentiful population of paddlefish, I had the otherwise rare opportunity to keep one of these mature fish at over 60 inches in length, or at least 3 years old. As I deliberated over what to do, I think what finally put me over the edge in this moment was understanding the gratitude those who work for the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation have for anglers being able to have this opportunity.
All right. So what's the process on keeping them?
Yeah, so we're going to tag the paddlefish with the customer ID number, also the date and time
Okay.
that you kept the fish. And you do in Oklahoma, you're allowed to snag all day, catch and release. But once you keep one, then you're done for the day.
Gotcha. Okay.
And, we will also check them in on the app. You have to register the harvest,
Okay.
just like a deer.
Sure.
And the season limit is 2 paddlefish.
Oh, wow.
Per person per year.
And how long is the season?
It's actually open year round.
Yeah.
But mainly most of the harvest happens in the springtime
Gotcha.
because the fish are in the rivers, making spawning attempts. And so we'll get some duct tape and take him up, and then we'll put this fish in the live well.
Okay. Right on. Well, this is awesome. Thank you. This really makes the trip already, man. And it's only been an hour, eh?
You know, these fish it's of course it's a prehistoric fish like we talked about. Oklahoma has the premier population of paddlefish in the world.
Sure.
Like this for recreational fishery. We're here at Ulagal Lake, but they're Grand Lake, Fort Gibson. I mean, they're found in about a dozen of our lakes, and people come from all over the world.
Yeah.
Japan, Germany.
Really. It's a cool fish, man.
It's a bucket list fish.
That's for
like
sure.
This is a fish of a lifetime for lots of people, and we have them right here in Oklahoma. Like we are far away from the ocean, but we're fishing for
Ginormo.
the Oklahoma marlin right here.
Right? That is awesome. Well, cool, man. This has been fantastic. Sometimes you got a 12-point buck in front of you on the first day. You got to take
them.
So,
yeah,
hey.
I'm with you, buddy.
This is great. Well, thank you again. Appreciate it.
You guys
This has been great. And get them tagged up.
Since the early 1990s, the ODWC has worked tirelessly to boost the population of their state's paddlefish. And here, over 30 years later, we are seeing the results of their efforts paying off, allowing anglers to harvest 2 paddlefish every year. Marking down my information and essentially tagging the fish, this fortunately yet unfortunately meant that after less than 1 hour fishing, I had now met my daily limit of 1 paddlefish and could no longer make any casts for the rest of our day trip.
Okay, so because we we decided to keep the paddlefish, that means I am done for the rest of the day. So I'm going to take over the camera responsibilities, and hopefully we'll catch some more. But we can also fish for, you were saying white bass and everything too?
Yeah, white bass. There's also hybrid striped bass
Okay.
in this particular lake.
Uh-huh.
And I actually caught a pretty big one yesterday.
Right on.
Which is fun. You can fish for other kinds of fish, you just can't snag.
Sure, yeah. That works for me. I'm all good. This is fantastic.
So I took over camera duties and handed the rod off to my wife Allison, as well as our fishing friends David and Samantha, as they made casts toward a paddlefish of their own. Now, only somewhat recently has the ODWC decided to stop funding their paddlefish research using the sale of caviar provided by the fish. Being a relative of the sturgeon, a fish I've also had some experience catching in the Wisconsin dells, the female paddlefish produce roe. And not just a little, but a lot of roe, which can then be produced into caviar. And as if the events of a Hollywood movie were met with rural Oklahoma, there was a time in US history where members of the Russian mafia, organized crime, and the like would exploit the easily snagged paddlefish to sell their roe internationally. This was an activity that was simply unsustainable for the paddlefish, as Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation officials set to put a stop to the activity by declaring the sale of paddlefish roe and the transport beyond Oklahoma state lines illegal. By creating state-run paddlefish processing centers, the state was able to harvest the roe produced by the paddlefish, returning the processed fish to the angler for free, while developing the roe into caviar, which was then sold for statewide wildlife funds. This put an end to the poaching, led to fully state-funded paddlefish research, as well as the paddlefish hatchery program, and lowered the global demand for caviar, decreasing poaching, all in one fell swoop. Today, you can still harvest 2 paddlefish a year, 1 per day, and you can still harvest the roe to create your own caviar for your own consumption, something we may have tried if we had a bit more time for preparation. But for now, that's an adventure we'll have to try at a later date. Over the next few hours of day 1, dozens of casts were made in various directions, hoping for the sweep that would finally connect with the solid body of this filter-feeding paddlefish. There were certainly periods of time where it felt like casts were being made into an empty pool of water. However, when that retrieve finally did connect, it was all hands on deck.
And when you hear the thing going on,
When it stops reel.
Yeah, then stop, and you're gonna reel. Kind of pumping.
This was yet another good-sized paddlefish. Taking note from other lasso wranglers, Nels knelt down off the side of the boat to lasso the fish. Except this time, the lasso wasn't able to tighten before slipping off the end of the nose. With the fishing line wrapped around the paddle of the fish, it was a secure hold, but it also meant the hook could nick the line, breaking it under the immense weight of the fish. Nels reached down once more, lassoing the fish by the tail before pulling tight. As we expected, the line from the treble hook had wrapped around the nose of the paddlefish, and this was likely due to the paddlefish waving its nose and rolling to shake the hook loose during the fight. But when all was said and done, it was fun to get another up-close look at a fish this size, and something you'd never expect to be swimming around in small creeks and rivers in the middle of landlocked United States. Shockingly, this is a fish that can grow up to 20 inches per year. That's more than the common carp. So even if this looks like an ancient fish that swam around these waters for decades, it's very likely, even at 60 inches in length, just a few years old. As our second fish of the day, but still not truly a mature paddlefish, David and Sam tossed them back into the river, giving them a chance to grow larger and give someone else the joy of catching them in the future. Now, this particular setup that we have been using for the paddlefish is a basic snagging rig. By tying a treble hook 12 to 18 inches from the lead at the end, the lead pulls the hook to the bottom, and having casted over top all of the fish to begin with, every pull has the potential to run the line along the profile of the fish, snagging them in the process. As Sam, David, and Allison kept up their casts, it wasn't too much longer before Samantha finally felt the strike of something solid.
There you go. And be ready when he gets up by the boat. Sometimes they take off. Woo!
What's a girl? What's a girl? Oh, it's moving. Don't, please don't. Come on, nice fish. You and I got a deal. I'll let you go. You just toes. And just kind of let it slowly. There we go.
Followed by another snag by David, who gave us a bit of a surprise. If you're a longtime angler, you may have had an experience with a fish so big that it for some reason just didn't feel like putting up a fight. And this was certainly the case here, until it got close to the boat. Realizing now what was going on, the paddlefish lunged away from the boat, peeling line as it swam.
This way.
Finally fighting the fish back to the boat though, Nels reached down and pulled the lasso taut.
Right there.
This was yet another mature paddlefish, our second of the day. Deciding to keep this fish as well, we had 2 harvested paddlefish on board, giving us at least 10 to 15 pounds of paddlefish fillets each. As the sky turned to overcast, we took several trips up and down the river, actively attempting to snag for paddlefish as we made our way through each stretch. But not having any luck, we returned to our first location from the morning and began making casts for the paddlefish yet again. It was at this point when Nels began casting out for the paddlefish as well, helping in our effort to hook into one of these fish. And with a lucky snag in place, he handed the rod off to my wife Allison, who managed to reel in one of the largest of the day.
Oh my God, look at him.
Dang.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Jeez, man.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
It's fantastic.
Nice. Nice. Oh, perfect. Oh, you just caught that. Look at you.
And
Happy she was finally able to feel the fight of one of these amazing fish, we released the paddlefish back into the river and ended the day with an awesome fight and fish, but also the feeling that it wasn't truly a fish of her own. All we could hope for at this point was that day 2 would grant us more luck. Now, cleaning the paddlefish was an interesting experience in primitive biology as well. Now, I may throw out a fair warning to avoid getting flagged here. If you know you're a bit squeamish at the sight of blood or cleaning animals, I may recommend skipping forward to the time provided to avoid anything you don't want to see. However, if you're in for an interesting educational biology lesson, keep on watching. Similar to sharks, paddlefish have no bones, but have skeletons made entirely of cartilage. Holding all that cartilage together is not a spinal cord, but an interesting bit of primitive tech known as the notochord. Now, something I was surprised by is that this notochord is actually something that still persists through the entire animal kingdom today. And not just with bugs and fish, but with birds, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals as well, and that includes us humans. In layman's terms, as an embryo growing into a fetus, we have no bones holding our body together, and instead, a notochord holds our shape. As we progress into a fully grown baby, developing a skeletal structure, our notochord becomes the cartilage discs that cushion our spinal vertebrae, which are then slowly replaced by mature cells in our first 10 years. So in a way, we shockingly have more in common with this primitive paddlefish than what first meets the eye. As strange as it may seem to pull a bungee cord-like rope from their body, this is a very similar material to what can be found cushioning our spinal column, shoulders, knees, and wrists today.
It feels like silicone or something. That's crazy. Huh. Like, it doesn't feel natural in your hands. It feels like something man-made. It's very strange. Okay. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, that's how it feels.
And then there's the $1,000 worth of paddlefish roe, which I'm sure was quickly enjoyed by the river fish beneath the surface. With only one day in the trip remaining, we said farewell to David and Samantha and made our way back out with our guide Amanda to see if we could finally find Allison's missing paddlefish we were searching for the day prior. And as luck would have it, she found it on the first cast of the day.
Yeah. Was that like your first? That was my first cast.
A little workout? Oh, very cool. Oh.
I cannot believe that. Get you all ready from the get-go. Yep.
Very cool. Woo!
Our trip searching for this living dinosaur was one I'll never forget. It's honestly an activity I think anyone can enjoy, though younger kids may have difficulty casting and operating such large fishing rods, as well as fighting some of the larger fish. So I'll put this one at age 10 and up. I would give a word of warning when looking for a paddlefish guide, however, as there seems to be a growing fad of guides taking out large groups of anglers on a single boat, live scoping for the paddlefish as they filter feed, then snagging the fish with the boat right on top of it. That is certainly an activity that you can take part in if that sounds fun to you, but I, for one, found the day of casting hoping for that snag to be just enough work to feel good about my catch, with the effort I put in. A big thanks to Nels and Amanda from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation for sharing this trip with us. It was an amazing experience learning about this wonderful fish, and so great to hear that Oklahoma's hard work of bringing the paddlefish back to a steady population has paid off. And a thank you to David and Samantha for joining us on our hunt. It was a bucket list fish that I'm happy to cross off, but at the same time, looking forward to catching again. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing for more content in the future. Comment down below if you've had any experience fishing for paddlefish or would like to try catching one of your own. Feel free to check out a few of our other videos such as the bucket list alligator gar and giant snakehead trips. But until the next time, everyone, take care and hope to see you modern day outdoors people again in the next episode.